Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be in conversation today with Rebecca Roanhorse. My name is Erin Roberts. I am Yale College class of '02, Davenport specifically, and I'm a writer of speculative fiction, which includes science fiction, fantasy, and horror across a few different formats, short stories, role-playing games, audio. And I'm an early career provost fellow at the University of Texas at Austin. And I am just beyond thrilled to be talking today with the incredible, esteemed, acclaimed author, Rebecca Roanhorse, who is Yale College class of '93, Trumbull, I believe.
Correct.
And yay, I got that right. And Rebecca's done so much, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I actually first encountered her work with her amazing short story, Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience, which burst onto the speculative fiction scene and won the Hugo and the Nebula Award. She followed that up with the award-winning novel Trail of Lightning, the middle grade novel Race to the Sun. I don't know how you have time to do all these amazing things. And now has the Between Earth and Sky series out, which started with Black Sun out in late 2020, and of course nominated for all the things. And I think that will be followed up with Fevered Star in April 2022. And you write for Marvel Comics too. So just, you're doing so much. So, but I know that, writing is more than just a list of how amazing you are and all your great credits. So tell us in your own words a little bit about, who you are as a writer.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Rebecca Roanhorse, and thank you for the great intro, Erin. I sound very fancy.
You are.
So, yeah, I think I have been writing my entire life, just, for my own edification, for my own joy. And I'm a huge reader as well, particularly of speculative fiction, which Erin defined, and I agree with her definition: science fiction, fantasy, horror. Anything that's sort of the what ifs, it's allowing your imagination to sort of run in different scenarios, both future and historical. And I think that's really what I try to do. I try to reimagine either the future, well, that hasn't happened, so I guess I'm not reimagining it, but I try to imagine the future or reimagine the past and bring voices that are overlooked or maybe erased and perspectives that have not really been in the mainstream to those genres. So when I write science fiction and fantasy, I am writing from an Indigenous or a Black perspective, often a female protagonist, and just trying to bring a different perspective, I guess, to genres that I absolutely love, but have felt certainly marginalized in.
That's amazing. And I'm curious, because I know that you're a very character-focused writer. Are there characters, both in terms of their perspectives, just who they are, that you find yourself drawn to, that you sort of keep showing up on your pages?
Yeah, so, those are sort of the big things that I try to do, this sort of like bringing, those voices to light. But certainly I bring my own sort of interests and issues and obsessions to writing, just as any author does. And those often come out in the kinds of characters that I like to create. I'm particularly interested in outsiders, individuals who have somehow been alienated from their communities and are trying to get back to their communities, or have decided wholly to reject community, and sort of what the consequences of those are both ways. Like, what is the burden of being part of a community? And what is, I guess, sort of in equal amounts, both the freedom and the loss involved in not having community. And I think those things come up again and again in my work.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, in your current series, what sort of outsiders do you have, within that work?
Yeah, so my current work is Black Sun. And as Erin mentioned, the sequel, Fevered Star, is out in April, I think, of next year. And this is a big, sprawling, epic fantasy series. It's inspired by the pre-Columbian Americas. So I really drew my inspiration from cultures as varied as the Mexica and the Maya, the ancestral Puebloans, the Cahokia mound builders, sort of this the America centered around the Gulf of Mexico, and it's not a historical novel. It is fantasy. There is magic. There are giant flying crows. There's all sorts of things, going on. But it's really a human story as well. And at the center of that story are three main characters that we sort of follow. Serapio, who is a young man who was raised far, far away from his community, and his community has experienced a genocide, and he has been raised to embody that community's God. And it is a God of vengeance. And so he is sort of a chosen one, which is a common trope in epic fantasy. But I really tried to subvert that and do something interesting with it. And he, he's been told by his mother that he is a god, but we know how moms are, right? So who's to say?
Everyone's mom thinks they're a god.
Exactly. So, but he's sort of been set on this bloody path of vengeance. To speak for a community that he's not even a part of, that he didn't grow up in, although he is related to it. And so a lot of his story is how that works out for him. Is he accepted by this larger community? Do they even want his vengeance? And where does he sort of fit in if he is not the God that he thinks that he is? And where does he fit in if he is the God? So sort of bringing those questions to light, and that's sort of Serapio. His sort of counterpart, I would say the other part of really the heart of the story is Shiala. And she is a sea captain. She has been actually ostracized from her community. She's been thrown out for actions that are unclear in Black Sun, but come to light in Fevered Star in the next book. But she's sort of making a life of her own. But she's a hard drinking, bisexual sailor who is lost, I guess, a bit, but is a very fun character. Definitely sort of the every man or every woman of the story. Who is caught up in sort of these machinations of gods and politics that she did not sign up for, but is somehow along for the ride. And I would say the other main character, Narampa, she is probably my most challenging character, at least for me to write. She is a woman who grew up in a privileged city, but she grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, so to speak. But through circumstances and fate, she moved to the right side and has now risen to power in the most powerful institution in the city. But certainly there are factions within her organization that do not want her there, do not think she deserves to be there. And she has to fight for those against those. She's also a reformist. She sees the problems within this institution and wants to change it. And so with her, I think the question is, can you change an institution from the inside, or is it better to just burn it down? And what if they don't even want you there to begin with? Like, how does that all work out? So very much reminds me, she is sort of my, I guess, sort of my woman of color in a white institution, although these are fantasy worlds and these are sort of indigenous inspired, as I mentioned. So there's not like, the racial divides and things that we have in our contemporary culture. But certainly that was the inspiration. Like, how do you function within an institution? How do you live somewhere that you love? She loves what she does, but they don't love you back.
I feel almost bad segueing in this way, but this seems like a great opportunity to ask, how was your Yale experience?
Did you draw from your Yale experience?
I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah, but how was it for you being at Yale?
It was wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say about my time at Yale. I made lifelong friends. My roommate freshman year, Annalisa Bella, is still my best friend. And we're going on 30 years or something, I'm not counting. But we still talk weekly. So it's really just amazing. I wish, I guess I had appreciated a little more when I was there, but youth is wasted on the young. And from 18 to 22, I did not appreciate the world that I was given. But what I did, I guess, understand and really love was sort of that intellectual community. Like a lot of Yaleys, I'm sure it's the same now. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. I went to a big public high school. I was sort of, the weirdo, still am. But certainly when I went to Yale, I was among like-minded weirdos. And that sort of environment that really nurtures sort of intellectual curiosity and individual expression. That was my experience of Yale, and I really treasure it.
I love that. We should send Yale like-minded weirdos. We'll have them add that right under. Just translate that to Latin. Boom! It's the new tagline. You're welcome, Yale. So I'm wondering. So you left Yale. You left this lovely, like, intellectual community, and I know you've been writing your whole life, but you started writing for publication, I think, later. So I'm wondering the journey between like your Yale days and you like bursting onto the writing scene. So what was that journey like, and what made you decide to kind of take the writing world by storm?
Yeah, it was much later, actually. I think I had 2 full careers before I became a full-time writer. I went to seminary, actually. I went to Union Theological and got a degree in theology.
Nice.
And then it was right at the cusp of the dot-com boom. And I became a computer programmer for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And worked in that field, mostly in database design and development, and some of that in Hollywood. And then on Wall Street. And then I became a lawyer and practiced
Like you
law
do?
for 10 years because, why not? But I did find the law generally unfulfilling. There was not a lot of outlets for creativity. They don't really let you like spin a yarn in briefs as much as I tried, right? And so I guess, I was really looking for that creative outlet again, like that place that had brought me joy. And writing had always it was my thing. I think because I never realized that a Black and Native woman could write speculative fiction, could write science fiction and fantasy. You just didn't see it. And now, obviously, you see it much more, but back, in my day, back in the olden times, I didn't know about Octavia Butler. We didn't have N.K. Jemisin yet or Nnedi Okorafor. So I didn't really have people to look up to and be like, I could be that. So I became all these other things. But certainly in the early 2010s, when I did start writing, I first just wrote for joy again. But the little writing group that I had joined, a local group here in Santa Fe, told me my stuff was good. And at first I was like, are you sure? I don't know. They're like, yes, you should try to get it published. And so I tried to get it published. I actually knew very little, I would say nothing about publishing, but I did some research on agents. I queried an agent just into her slush, which is what they call, just these unsolicited manuscripts that they get. And I think my agent said she gets about 30,000 of those a year.
Wow.
And she picks about 5 to represent. And I was one of the 5. And then we sold my first book in about a week. And, we were off to the races. So it worked out, but that was never really my plan.
But now that it has happened, you mentioned
it's good,
which is great for all of us basically who get to read it, to be honest. But now that you mentioned the names, the N.K. Jemisin, Nnedi Okorafor, so many others that have sort of paved the path, and now there are people now reading who would put your name in that list. So I'm curious, kind of, what impact are you hoping that your work will kind of make on the writing world, on the world in general?
Yeah, gosh, I did not write with impact in mind, and I still actually don't. I still write because this is what I love, and these are the stories I want to tell. And sometimes it's a little indulgent. Just take a look at my crow god, you know. And then sometimes, I'm working out my own issues or the things that interest me, or whatever that is. But I guess if I had to think of the impact that my work had, I guess it's just, a lot of it's visibility. A lot
Mm,
of it is, look, maybe there's another Black or Native woman who wants to write in this genre and needs to see someone else doing it to know that it's possible. And the stories that they want to tell, maybe they're not centered in a Euro inspired world. Maybe they want to write stories about the Americas or their own, cultures or whatever that is. And they're not sure that's viable. And so maybe they can look at my work and see, oh, look, Rebecca did it and she's doing okay. So maybe I can do it too. And so that's pretty exciting. And then of course, I just want people to love the characters. I just want people to be inspired and fall in love, and the same way that I do with hundreds of other books that I've read by other authors that really have been a comfort and a joy for me as a reader, I think, throughout my life.
oh, that's amazing. We're coming low on time, so I just have sort of two questions left, and one is a little bit behind the scenes. So I'm wondering what your creative process is like, and as a sort of part of that question, you don't just write books. As I said, you've written comics. I've heard whispers that you're involved in television here, all kind of things happening. So I'm wondering, sort of, does your process change, and you sort of, how do you write?
Hmm. Well, my process is constantly changing to fit the moment. I mean, certainly COVID has had an impact on most creatives and the way that we work. I've never really been precious about process
Mm,
because I was a young mother when I first started writing with a full-time job in a law firm. I wrote when I could, which was usually 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Crouched by my daughter's bedside on
oh,
my little laptop. Um, so I have learned to write when necessary under whatever circumstances I am given. Often you will find me at soccer practice, in the car, drafting a short story or something. So I think maybe women, and particularly women of color, who often come to their careers late and are faced with circumstances like mine, their process is a practical one. As far as inspiration, it's everything around me. I'm constantly absorbing what I'm watching on TV, what I'm reading, the conversations of the people around me. Yes, I'm listening to your conversations. um, and just, I guess trying to be a student of human relationship. Because I think no matter the genre you write in, or even the method, or whatever it is, if it's TV, film, books, comic books, whatever, they're really all about human relationship and the different sort of kinds of relationships, whether it be, siblings or, mother daughter or mentor or romantic, whatever that is. That's really the meat of any story, I think. And most people want to be taken on this emotional journey. And so I try to bring sort of all those things together in an entertaining way. I am not preachy, hopefully. Someone please tell me if I am. But I do like to slide sort of sideways in and talk about things that are important to me as a human being. And I think that's what speculative fiction really allows you to do over any other genre. Allows you to sort of slide in there sideways and present issues that maybe head on people would be a bit repulsed by, or repulsed is a strong word, but they might not engage the way that they would if it's in a fantasy world. And so, yeah, I don't know that I answered the question about process, but that's sort of it. All I need is a cup of coffee, a good playlist, and 15 minutes.
I love that. No, that's perfect. You absolutely answered it.
Okay.
And so for the final question, for all the people who are watching this and are like, where can I get, this woman's fiction into my brain? Where should they start with your work, and what should we be looking forward to coming next?
Yeah, well, you can find my website, RebeccaRoanhorse.com. That has a list of, hopefully, if I keep it updated, everything that I've written. If you like science fiction, you might want to start with my short story, Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience, trademark, which you can find for free on the Apex Magazine website. I also have another science fiction story I'm thinking for free online, a brief lesson in Native American astronomy, which I think you can find on the, I would Google it. Maybe the Uncanny, I can't remember where that published. Oh, you know what? That's on Apex Magazine too. I'm sorry, that was a mess. And then if you like novels or you like fantasy, you should check out Black Sun. It is that
Amazing.
sprawling epic fantasy, thank you, that I mentioned before, and is really, I think, my most recent, most creative work. Real emphasis on world building and character development, and just a joy. That's like my dream book. That when I'm growing up in Texas, reading, I don't know, Tolkien and George Martin and Weiss and Hickman's Dragonlance Chronicles, like all of that feeds into this book and this series. And then it's just a little bit of the weirdness that is me.
What an amazing note to end on. The weirdness that is all of us. No, thank you so much for joining me. I wish I had 10 hours to talk to you about so many things, but I'm glad everyone here got a chance to get a sense of who you are and your work. Please, I cannot say enough about how amazing the work is. I've read it, it's so good. So please, pick it up and check out what Rebecca does next. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.